All right, one word reaction to the final the finale.
The finale.
The finale. The finale. The pilote. The finale of Obi Wan Kenobi. I'll go with you first, Sam.
I can't think of a better word other than just awesome.
Right.
It was just awesome.
That's cool. What about you, BB Nate?
Indescribable. There you go. That's a word. You can
Big
use.
word.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to sing a song from Chris Tomlin.
No,
All right.
no.
No, you better not.
No.
Dad, what
No.
about you?
All right. I'm going to go with exceptional.
It's better than awesome.
It is. But now the
Not as
biggest
good as
question.
indescribable.
Yeah. But now the biggest question is whether or not the series should get a season 2.
No.
We'll talk about that along with some Marvel and some DCEU. That's up next.
time.
This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was amazing.
Yeah, so DCEU is DC extended. Not expanded?
No, extended.
Extended? I thought it was expanded.
No, it's extended.
Is it? Sam, did you not know that?
No, I did not realize that.
Even though you wrote the DC segment this week?
Well, yeah, but
It's kind of a flip-flop.
Yeah.
You did Marvel and he did DC.
it is a little weird.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and that is that these myths, they speak to that story, and that is why we talk about Star Wars and Marvel and DC and all the epic franchises.
Lord of the Rings here pretty soon.
Hopefully. Stranger Things, we've been talking about that
Yes.
lately. Cobra Kai, we talked about that.
Well,
Is that an
Anyway.
epic franchise?
It's pretty epic.
It's cool.
It's epic. If you ask Johnny, it would be. So anyway, I'm David. I am the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
I am honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons. Samuel, what are you talking about this week?
Nate, I'm so sorry for Justice League.
Now you know my
Justice League.
pain. You know what I had to deal with now.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. BB Nate, what are you talking about?
Well, Miss Marvel is shocking everyone with the ClanDestines, even big Marvel fans.
Interesting.
You, Dad?
I'd never even heard of them before that.
Exactly.
We all loved the Obi Wan Kenobi series, but not all of us had the same feelings about a season 2. We'll see about that. Are we going to keep going?
We're good.
I'm not getting any reactions from you guys on this.
We
Thank you
thought
so
you were
much
gonna keep going.
for listening to the show. Please follow the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. That could be an Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or
Are we on Podbean?
we are on Podbean.
Podbean.
We're on all of them. Overcast,
Is that like a weather app?
Acast, all of them.
But we're not on ham radio yet.
We're not on ham radio. You're right. So,
iHeartRadio?
yeah, so please follow the show. And after that
One
intro,
more reactions. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we're giving you your
may be
reaction.
tuning out of the show based on that intro. Thank you guys so much for listening, though. And if you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. We sometimes wonder why. But anyway, thank you for doing that. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. I've been waiting all week to talk about this. Some of the most amazing moments in Star Wars history happened in Part 6 of Obi Wan Kenobi, but do these moments mean that we should be happy with what we got instead of pushing for a season 2?
Bulky religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Instead of talking about what we're going to talk
I
about.
forgot.
Oh, you messed up.
So instead of talking about what we're going to talk about, let's talk about what we're talking about.
There we go.
That's what happens when you record early on a Sunday afternoon instead of Monday evening.
Exactly.
You're off your game.
You're off game. Well, we have an Avalanche game
I had
to watch,
to preach this morning. I'm exhausted. We got the Avalanche game tonight.
Let's go. Go Avs.
Go Avs. Went to the Avalanche game in Tampa this week. That was awesome. But let's talk a little. Before we did that, though, it's a good segue.
Good.
We got up early, like at 6:30 in the morning, and watched part 6 of Obi Wan Kenobi.
I woke up at 6 because I was too excited.
It was awesome. Now that the series has been completed, I want to see where this falls on your guys' list of favorite Star Wars stories.
So this includes TV shows, movies,
everything.
All that stuff? Okay,
everything. Rebels, Last Jedi, everything.
Well,
Samuel the Hutt. Where does this fall?
I don't know if I've ever like ranked everything in Star Wars.
That's because you're a good Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and like it all. I mean,
now we're asking you to be a bad one.
Exactly.
No, it's all good, and I like it all for different reasons.
Where does this fall, though? Like, where would you say this falls in your rewatchable or favorites or something like that?
I mean, definitely. I mean, this is gonna seem like shocking to you guys,
dun, dun, dun.
But I would put it above Book of Boba Fett.
Okay,
just
it's not all that shocking.
Because of the impact of the story, plus Obi-Wan and Vader. Obi-Wan
Kenobi actually appeared in every episode of his own series, so that's a difference.
True. Yeah, no, you're right. But I think it was better in that regard. But I mean, there were. I didn't not like these parts of the series. Don't get me wrong. I think it was great from start to finish. But like the best parts of it were, episode 6, which is to be
it built to that,
right?
And it delivered.
So I don't know. I think I would still like put Mando over it in my opinion,
that's
just
fair.
because I think Mando was more fun along the whole way.
Okay,
in my
that's
opinion.
fair. I'm curious about you, BB Nate.
It's difficult to find a place to put this.
Yeah.
Because it was something we've all been waiting for a very long time.
Yeah, for a very long time.
We've all wanted something Kenobi, no matter if it was before the prequels or after or something. We all wanted it. And so to hear that we were getting it, we were very excited. And we waited a while after the announcement for it. And so the anticipation leading up to this is different than The Mandalorian.
That's
The Mandalorian was an original.
You had no
Disney
idea
Plus
what
series.
you were
We didn't know what we were getting into. But this one was Obi Wan Kenobi, which is crazy.
It was so good.
And so as I was watching it, there were moments when I felt I had more fan moments in this than I did Mandalorian.
Okay.
More nostalgia, more.
There were more of those Ahsoka episodes, Luke Skywalker episodes
in this than there was in Mandalorian. That's just that's how it's going to work with this type of a show. You're going to be seeing older characters, which is great, and I always love that. And it wasn't just fan service to be fan service; they all served a big purpose in this show. So
but there was a lot of fan service.
There was, of course. But I don't ever remember having such an emotional reaction to The Mandalorian as I did the ending of Obi Wan Kenobi.
The ending of this?
Yes.
Specifically, what part of it? I mean,
Episode
everybody that's
6,
listening to this...
Basically...
hold on. If you haven't watched this and you're listening to this show, what's wrong with you? Go watch the show and then come back. All right. So
it will be spoiled.
Yes. The kind of, starting at the Leia stuff.
Okay.
And then the Luke part and meeting him
when
finally.
you thought the show was over is when it got
exactly. You're like
beyond dreams.
Yeah. And then Qui-Gon, which is absolutely insane.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
I just think I think I'd have to put this above Mando and, of course, above Book of Boba Fett. Not that I didn't like Book of Boba Fett. I just think that it's kind of the lowest thing that... I think it's the lowest thing that Disney Star Wars has put out yet. I'm going to be honest. I like Rise of Skywalker more than it just because I think Rise of Skywalker...
Rise of Skywalker lower than what?
No, Rise of Skywalker is above it. I think that Book of Boba Fett's one of the lowest things that Disney Star Wars has put out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is not a problem. I still enjoy
all Star Wars is good Star Wars. Some Star Wars is better than others.
Exactly. And I just think that Book of Boba Fett fell short. But I really loved this series a lot.
I would put this... I cannot differentiate between this, Last Jedi, and Star Wars Rebels. They're all equal.
The Holy
to me.
Trinity?
They are the Holy Trinity of Star Wars for me. All of those Disney era, by the way. So if you're one of those Disney Star Wars haters, this is probably not the podcast.
I can't think of anything even reaching the same tier as Rebels in my mind. So I just put that in its own category.
It for me.
That's
the ending of this episode was just as emotional to me as the last 2 episodes of Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, I can't. I was a mess in the last 2 episodes of Star Wars Rebels.
This was amazing.
I'm always a mess when I see it.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about this. As we predicted on our last episode, if you listened, you shouldn't have been shocked by many of the events that happened in this, because there are 2 parallel storylines we predicted in this. That's right. Or if you read Screen Rant, because they do the same thing. They just take from us. Anyway, I love you, Screen Rant. Anyway, there are 2 parallel storylines in Part 6, Kenobi versus Vader and Reva hunting Luke. First, let's talk about Reva. Reva goes on to Tatooine, and she attacks the Lars homestead.
Got there fast.
She did. They all got there very fast. Obi-Wan got to Tatooine very quickly as well. The story does a really decent job of hiding what's going on from Luke at first, as Owen and Beru are kind of telling Luke about that the Tuskens are on the hunt. But then it gets a little bit muddled when Reva starts chasing down Luke with a lightsaber. BB Nate, does this create some confusion for A New Hope?
I don't think so.
Explain.
Judging by, first of all, he's 10 years old. I personally, after 6 years, I don't remember a ton when I was 10 years old. That's just because life happens, and that's how it goes with memory.
You got to move on.
And second of all, he had a pretty major head injury that happened during that. And a lot happens when you have a head injury. I should know. So I'm just saying.
That's true.
I'm just saying, I don't remember much that happened when I got my concussion. I can tell you, I don't remember like the week after that. It's blank. So
okay.
I don't think that we should be concerned about how this creates confusion for A New Hope. A lot happens with that type of stuff. Life happens. It was 9 years that we last saw him before that. And I just think that, and you didn't see much of the lightsaber at all, just a little bit. So,
and he was running away.
Exactly. So he wasn't paying attention. So I think that just a lot of conveniency and just it can be explained away.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but the position that he's laying in when Reva walks up to him is the same position that he's laying in when, I think, isn't it, when Obi Wan Kenobi comes up to him in the same area?
He's just laid out on the.
Oh, really? It looked the same. It brought back those memories. Anyway, what did you think about this? Does it mess up?
I don't understand why it would create confusion for.
Because he doesn't seem to have any like connection at all to the Jedi Sith or anything like that.
Kenobi's showing him, and he's like, "This is a lightsaber," and Luke is like, "Whoa, this is so cool."
That's fair. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. He saw it for a little bit. He was a frightened boy who's probably going to repress this memory from being so young or alter
your mind
it somehow.
Can repress traumatic memory.
You know, and like Nate said, head injuries are no thing to like sneeze at. So
they're not fun at all.
But even if he does remember it, I don't think it makes that big a deal. It's not like they explained, hey, this chick was chasing you and that was a lightsaber that she was chasing you with. Like, they probably didn't want to bring it up since then. Just
it's not like it's like dinner conversation around the blue milk.
Hey, y'all remember when that
Darth
lady
Maul
attacked us with a lightsaber?
Right. All right, so Reva has a chance to kill off Luke, but instead of she sees herself becoming the very thing that she swore to destroy, Darth Vader, which I thought was an interesting parallel with that. Sam, how do you feel about her redemption arc in this?
I thought it was well done. I think they set everything up in a way that worked. And, you know, obviously it was predictable because we did predict that this very exact situation would happen on our last episode.
Felt very smart watching this episode.
Yes, we did. But I don't think just because it was predictable, it's a bad thing by any means. Star Wars is largely about redemption. I mean, that's kind of the entire story, especially for Anakin. That his whole story is leading up to his redemption in Episode 6. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Star Wars is a sucker for a good redemption arc, and I think it makes sense that Reva was the one to get that. I think if we do end up seeing her in the future somehow, we're gonna have to watch her deal with the things she's done. It's different than most redemption arcs that we've seen because usually they're redeemed and then they die. Like
feels a little bit like Seer from Fallen Order. Seer Junda, the main chick.
Oh yeah,
on the ship. She did do terrible things, and then she swore herself off from the Force and has been trying to redeem herself since then.
But largely, we've only seen characters like Ben Solo or Vader where they're redeemed and then they die off shortly after. In this case, you know, it might provide an interesting example where we're able to see her really deal with these demons in a way.
Yeah, I was excited to see redemption arc. I felt like that was kind of the best way to wrap up her character, not just Kenobi, you know, killing her or even the Berus killing her. So I think
the Barus.
Could you imagine getting?
I think it's the Lars. Baru is her name.
Could you imagine getting like killed by some,
Honestly,
basically
Baru-
some rednecks in Star Wars? Like that's what they are.
Woo! We got the guns out. Let's take it out.
Yeah, Baru was vicious.
Yeah,
She was brutal.
She was brutal.
She was
but-
brutal.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, I really liked seeing the redemption arc. I thought it was great. I was expecting it. I was hoping for it, and I actually thought that I was surprised it didn't happen a little earlier in the series. I thought we were going to get more of that in the last episode, but that just kind of means it kind of shows me that they're wanting to do more of this with this character, which is not a problem. I'm excited.
So Obi Wan Kenobi tells Reva that she overcame the dark side, that she can become whatever she wants to be going forward. BB-8, where do we most likely see Reva again? Do we get her in her own series, or what?
If we see her in Andor, I feel like that would really work for her character, and
that would be bringing in a Force element to Andor, which I'm not sure we're going to get.
It could be. Again, if it's like Seer, we could see it not using the Force. We could see her just completely letting the Force leave her body and just like forgetting about it and all her teaching, which is something that Jedis have done before. Kanan did it. You wouldn't have known he was a Force user unless you revealed it in the series. So I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility to see her in Andor.
What do you think, Sam?
But the issue with that is in Fallen Order and in Rebels at the start, we didn't already know that those characters were,
and that's why
Force
it would be so
users.
interesting for her character to be seeing how she deals with that.
I feel like it would just be frustrating. We're like, we know she can use the Force, we know she's a Jedi. Why isn't she? I think it would distract from the story that it would be trying to tell when we're too focused on her and why is she doing this. It's not about her story. I think if you're gonna bring her character back in, it either needs to be in like a rumored TV show, those
her
rumors
own series or something,
or as a B plot or something similar in a second season. I don't think you bring her into another series that's got a completely different tone and storyline than
I wouldn't say completely different tone.
Okay,
a very different storyline.
So what about the sequel to? I don't remember what it's called. The sequel to Fallen Order.
Jedi
Jedi Survivor. What if you bring her into that and she's working alongside Cal Kestis now?
I mean,
I can see that working.
That would be cool, and I would like that. But it kind of muddies not muddies, but like, granted, yes, of course, as mega Star Wars fans, we're going to have seen anything that's put out before we, play a game. But there are a good number of people who just play the games and stuff, or don't.
All they have to do is tell a tiny, 30 seconds of backstory, and all of a sudden you're back in there. She's a former Inquisitor that's turned good.
None of them would know who she is, so she'll have to explain herself.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, I think that would work.
Okay. Of course, in this series, the biggest moments in Part 6 are between Kenobi and Vader.
Really?
The lightsaber battle between the two is shorter and less complex than the epic fight from Revenge of the Sith. Sam, were you satisfied with what we got?
Yeah, I think I still hold the fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith as the top. I mean, nothing's going to top that. You just can't convince me. But there were certain elements that I really liked about this fight. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen Vader really doing that ever. So that was cool in and of itself. Mm-hmm. But one thing I really appreciated was how in this fight between two Force users, they actually used the Force pretty regularly. That's something you don't see very much in a lot of the fights in Star Wars. I'm like, you've got these essentially superheroes. They've got these otherworldly powers. Why are they not using them and they default to using laser swords? So I liked how they blended the two in the fight more than we've seen before.
Yeah, I think that what this fight had on the Revenge of the Sith one is that they used the Force a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
More than we've seen before in any other fight. I thought it was very cool, and just a lot of the moments felt very cool and epic. You know, Kenobi raising all the rocks behind him, kind of reference to Last Jedi, and just pummeling Vader. Kind of that moment showed that Kenobi knew he was more powerful than Vader, and Vader had not matured to the point where he could beat Kenobi yet.
Right.
That just is showing that. And so I liked the symbolism of the fight more than the fight itself, because I think that was what they were going for. They were trying to figure out how to accomplish the story part of it instead of just having a really cool 20-minute long fight.
Yeah, it worked well. It was a good balance between the two. I think you're right.
Well, the climactic moment was after Vader split the earth open and had it actually swallow his former master alive, after which he declared his victory over him. And again, this was premature, as Kenobi used the Force to lift a bunch of rocks and reemerged no worse for the wear. It was then that we got the conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin Vader. I think it was kind of both. That was cool, the way they did
Darth
the voices. Darth Anakin on that. Anakin Vader. I like that better. It was kind of what I was waiting for all series in this. BB Nate, we watched this episode a second time yesterday. Yes. It became clear that a specific line was written in to help add some context to one of the most important moments in episode 4. Talk about that.
Vader saying he killed Anakin, that was also an emotional moment where Kenobi just saw Anakin just saying, "I'm sorry."
He twists it. He becomes so evil.
All of it. And then Vader's like, "I'm not your failure. I killed Anakin.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." Yeah.
And so you could see him just feel defeated more than anything. He did not win that battle in his mind because he just lost everything again for a second time, which is terrible. But Vader saying he killed Anakin helps with Kenobi saying Darth Vader killed your father to Luke Skywalker. And that really helps clear that up, because you're always like, why the heck would Kenobi lie to Luke Skywalker? It just makes no sense. So
It adds weight and context to Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view moment.
Yes, and who knew that in a series where 3 episodes in, everybody's like, this series is breaking canon, that it would add more to complete the canon, which is fun to see because it just shows
it's
weight.
Almost like these writers actually knew what they were doing.
What a shocker.
What a concept. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is... We even had our own concerns going into this, and I think that's fair. Some people went a little extreme with voicing their concerns.
What?
But, I don't think there's anything wrong with having the concerns. We went into it knowing, look, we're only a little bit into this season. We trust that these people know what they're doing, so let's give it time. And we were right. They fixed it up in the end. So there's nothing wrong with having a concern or two.
Yeah. You mentioned it a minute ago, BB Nate, but I don't know about you two, but when Obi-Wan told Anakin that he was sorry for this, it ripped my heart both times out of my chest. Sam, how does this affect the way that you think of old Ben and Vader in the original trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, first off, that scene, largely... almost entirely goes to Ewan's acting. I mean, he was phenomenal with
He did such a good
that.
job in this series. It was insane.
Give him the Emmy.
Yeah, right.
I hope he gets at least a nomination, because if Elizabeth Olsen can get a nomination from WandaVision, he definitely can.
Absolutely.
100%.
But as to how it affects the way I think it paints it differently. Like they've kind of almost come to terms with each other in a way, but as an enemies sort of thing. Like Vader's not Anakin anymore. It's Vader, or Darth, as he calls him. And Ben is his enemy. I mean, that's just really what it comes down to when they meet again in episode 4. So I think it just kind of helps explain why they feel that way. I mean, you could fill in the gaps yourself without this series between episode 3 and episode 4.
And we have for 40 years.
Yeah.
So.
But I think, like you said, it adds to the canon. It helps explain things even more. Anakin is dead in Obi-Wan's mind. This is just another foe that he has to come up against at this point. So I think it works well.
Yeah, I think it worked super well for, just like what I said, explaining and adding more to the canon. Again, the scene was horribly depressing. That's a good way. It was so sad. But I really thought that what this show did better than Mandalorian and better than Book of Boba Fett was it gave us the emotion of the characters that we've come to love over the past 40 years. And that's not a problem.
Coming from the 16-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm saying for all Star Wars
fans.
I'm
picking on you.
But I was super excited to see that. And while Luke Skywalker showing up in Mando is a huge deal, we didn't get the personal moments between, and the resolution. While it's not the resolution that Kenobi wanted, it was closure for him, a finality of it. And that's even what he did in his cave later on.
There's some people that are struggling. Obviously, we knew what was going to happen. There is no way Obi-Wan and Anakin or Vader, battle each other in this without both of them surviving.
Right.
The why and the how is the big question that went into this episode. And some people have struggled with, why doesn't Obi-Wan kill Vader in this moment when it seems he has the opportunity to do that? What are your thoughts on the reason in universe, not out of universe? Because out of universe, it's because he is alive in the original trilogy. Right. In universe, why doesn't Obi-Wan kill Anakin?
I mean, it's kind of the same, the reasoning he uses for Reva later on in the episode. That's not mercy. He needs, Vader wouldn't show anybody mercy, so he needs to show mercy. Granted, you could go and, use the argument, well, because he didn't kill him, thousands more died because of Vader.
Then you could say that Jar Jar Binks created the Empire and killed all of those people.
Right. You can point blame anywhere. I mean, it honestly is a good question that I haven't, come up with a good answer for at the moment. Because I just frankly just want to enjoy the story.
I think that Obi-Wan couldn't kill him. I don't think that it's something that he could do. Even though Anakin was dead, he just physically couldn't bring himself to that point, which is completely understandable in his position. And I don't think that it's not the Jedi way.
That's the key.
It's not the Jedi
that's
way.
A good point.
It's the moment. It is an in-universe explanation.
Yes, when Anakin lost himself, the beginning of the end was when he killed Dooku. That was where it all started to fall apart. So Kenobi didn't want to let himself get to that point. So killing Vader, even though he's the most evil person in the galaxy,
besides
which then adds weight to Dark Disciple, because the entire book of Dark Disciple is how the Jedi Order is ordering Quinlan Vos to partner with Asajj Ventress to go and assassinate Dooku, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is struggling with this in that moment. And I think this is the same thing. It happened. He looks back and he sat for 10 years in that cave and looked at when did Anakin pass the point of no return, and he realizes something happened in that throne room after he got knocked out when Anakin killed Dooku. That was the moment, And I think he's realizing, I can't cross that line.
Exactly.
Yep.
No matter what. All right. So this series ended with several moments of real resolution. Kenobi tells Leia that he will always be there for her, but that their connection and story must remain a secret for both of their sakes. BB Nate, how does this help resolve what some have considered a discontinuity from episode 4?
It just helps for if anybody was seeing her record or got the recording of Leia in episode 4.
Kenobi,
exactly. So that just helped that resolve it. And I think that was the main point, even though it's such a throwaway line that people could just look over as something fun that Kenobi would say to Leia. It really does mean a lot.
Yeah, I didn't notice this possible discontinuity until Savannah had pointed it out to me. She's like, why didn't Leia just say, "Hey, you saved my butt a few years ago. Could you help me out again?"
Yeah.
And I was like, that is kind of a good point. But they explained it. I mean, it was really quick, just a quick one sentence line that summed it up. He's like, we got to keep this a secret, which makes sense. And would explain why she would say, "Hey, you helped my father a few years ago." So
yeah. We then shift from that moment to the moment that old Ben first meets a 10-year-old Luke Skywalker. He gives Luke that toy starfighter that we see Luke play with in
Skyhopper.
In A New Hope. Of course, this is when we also get the famous Kenobi "Hello there."
Yeah,
I was ready. I was fully prepared for it this time. Did you like the way, Sam? Did you like the way that they handled this moment?
Yeah, I loved it, and I liked how, for us diehard fans, they kind of used the Skyhopper toy throughout the series. They were for keen-eyed fans like us, we were able to notice it, and it was kind of like he got it thinking for Luke, but couldn't get it to him, and eventually it was like this mini plot device. But I think they handled it well. It wasn't a long, drawn-out moment. We didn't need to see the whole conversation. Luke is familiar enough with Ben for A New Hope. He's like, "Oh yeah, there's that old wizard who lives out in the middle of the desert. He gave me this weird toy at one point." And then, the line was in there. It fit. It wasn't a forced line. But for all the big fans. It was a lot of fun. I think it was the proper way to handle it.
I think it was a great way to handle it. It was emotional enough on Obi-Wan's part of finally meeting Luke after 10 years, which is something that you thought he would have already done by now. But seeing that moment and just seeing after Owen asked Obi-Wan,
"What are you doing here? Yeah,
would you want to meet him?"
Oh yeah,
and then and then you just see his face light up.
It was like yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
I've been waiting for you to ask that, and I'm like, oh yeah, that hurt
because it's that moment again. It reminds him of the moment he first meets Anakin. Too.
Yeah,
they're the same age.
Yeah,
and they look similar. Yeah, very similar. So
it's pretty awesome on that. I think we all expected the screen to fade to stars after that and the credits to start rolling.
Yeah, and I would have been okay with it.
But then we got something that had been teased for the entire series. Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn. Kenobi expressed his relief that his old master has finally appeared to him, but then Qui-Gon tells him that he's been there all along, but that Kenobi is just hasn't been ready to see him. BB Nate, did this feel right to you?
Oh my gosh, 100%. It felt so Qui-Gon, and just it felt like their relationship worked so well.
It was like it was restarting in that
exactly, moment. and you could see Kenobi was understood what he meant. He knew. He
cut himself off from the Force.
Yeah, he knew that was a problem, and so seeing him, he wasn't like overly excited. He was, like you said, relieved to see him. Just kind of like, okay, I'm back. I have my connection back, and I get to finally meet with my master again. Kind of this, like I said, closure, and it was kind of like a new chapter for him, the closure of Anakin leading into this next part of his life, this important part. Even though he's on Tatooine, he still gets to learn more about the Force at this point. So,
yeah, I mean, I was hoping they would bring it in, and I would have been a little disappointed if they did.
We all would have been,
But you know, I was kind of expecting them to do it when Kenobi was like stuck under the rocks. Or whatever. Really? I thought Qui-Gon was going to come to him.
I did too. I kind of thought that was the moment.
So I was a little disappointed when that didn't happen. But I'm glad they did in the end. I think it worked well. It's an interesting concept. Now we know he's actually getting trained. So, and we kind of all expected it in a way because they have to be able to explain why Kenobi was able to become one with the Force in episode 4. So I'm glad they did that.
We've talked for 30 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the big question, which is where we're at right now. Ewan and Hayden and Deborah Chow and even Kathleen Kennedy have all seemingly backpedaled. You all right there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. They've all backpedaled on this being a one and done limited series. So I'll start with you, Samuel. Do you want a season 2?
Would I be disappointed if we got a season 2? No. Do I want one? Also, no. I think the story's good where it's at. You know, I don't want... Yes, this is a largely unexplored timeline, especially for Kenobi's story. But I don't want to, like, overfill it. I kind of like you can use your imagination to fill in the gaps in a way. Again, if they decided to make a season 2 and we got Ewan and Hayden and all of that back, would not complain for 1 second. I think it would be great. Maybe they're even able to like bring in other characters, like maybe he starts
Quinlan Boss, or
Boba and Jabba and all that because he's on Tatooine. They gotta explain why he thinks Mos Eisley is so scummy,
right?
You know, so obviously I would be totally great and excited for that. But I think the story's good where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I wouldn't complain if we got a second season. I just don't think we need one, and I don't want one. I think that letting Kenobi have this journey with Qui-Gon and us not having to have a big action storyline going is fine. I want him to be that secluded Kenobi we see for the next few years till Twin Suns. I want to see him journey with the Force. But I don't think I need to see that physically. I mean, I'm okay with him having that time and me not seeing it. And I don't think that we need to have more Kenobi. I think that we could have him maybe show up in another series at some point if they ever decided to do one. But I don't think he needs a second season.
There's the fanboy in me that You give me more Obi Wan Kenobi and more Darth Vader. You give me more Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen.
Exactly.
And I'm going to eat it up.
Of course.
That part of me wants a season 2. The storyteller in me, it's like, no, this was pretty perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way that this story ends better than even Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, yeah.
And they could have completely botched this story. Bringing this in was dangerous. Doing this series was dangerous, and they knocked it out of the park. It became something greater than we even dreamed it was going to be.
Yeah.
And they surprised us. They brought in Leia. They made the story about Leia and Obi-Wan and not Luke and Obi-Wan. And that was brilliant. And yes, we could have a Luke and Obi-Wan story, but I like the story where it's at right now.
Yep.
And I'm happy if they leave it this way. And so part of me is kind of like, the sequel to this is 10 years later, 9 years later, when Leia gets kidnapped or gets arrested by the Empire, and Obi-Wan Kenobi goes and gets Luke Skywalker, and next thing you know, they go on an adventure.
Right.
That's the story.
That's season 2.
And it makes me want to pick up and watch New Hope, and that's why I don't want another series.
Exactly. I agree with you.
With this. All right, well, it's time, even though we were like 40 minutes into this, 35 minutes into this, it's time for a dad moment.
I am your father.
I absolutely loved the response that Qui-Gon gave to Kenobi when Kenobi suggested that he's been waiting for his master for 10 years. It reminds me of that old poem about the man who sees his life as a journey through a desert, where at times there are 2 sets of footprints as Jesus walks beside him. But then he realizes that at the points in his life where things were the hardest, there are only 1 set of footprints. He assumes that this means that things were difficult during those moments because he was actually walking alone. But then Jesus corrects him and explains that it was during these moments and these difficult times when Jesus was actually carrying the man to help him through. Obi-Wan Kenobi has felt alone for these 10 years. But in reality, his master has been by his side this entire time. And it's a powerful metaphor for how God is with us even in our darkest moments. And that's why I loved this Qui-Gon moment. So
this is great.
Awesome.
Mic drop.
The truth is, we'll all be excited. Like we just said, if they announce a season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, we'll eat it up. We'll jump all over it. And when the trailer comes out, we'll lose our minds over it.
Oh, yeah.
But our hope is that they do this only if the story written deserves it and not because it's something that the fans are clamoring for.
Yep.
So enough about that. We got a new thing we're going to do.
Okay.
We're not going to do bad news this week. I'm changing it up this week. Instead of focusing on bad news, I wanted to start a new segment that we can revisit occasionally called It Is Canon.
Is it?
Oh, it's the other way around. I read it wrong. Gosh darn it. Is it canon?
Real great way to introduce
Did
this
I maybe
new segment.
tease it? Did I tease that it is or not? We'll see. This is where all the fun begins.
This is not going to go the way you think.
Okay, while we love the bad news segment, sometimes we want to change things up, have a little more fun that isn't kind of focused on the silliness in fandom that's out there, which is a little bit more than ever right now. So here's how the segment is going to work. I'm going to give you a description. Don't read the screen. I'm going to give you a description of something I found on Wikipedia. And you guys will make an argument for whether you think it's canon or legends and why. Okay. Does that make sense?
All right, we're ready.
All right. So it's the G47 tractor beam. Let me describe what it is. Okay. The G47 tractor beam generator is what it's called. And it was a heavy duty tractor beam projector produced by Novaldex. It was made for use on mining ships which moved asteroids. Klestis Fig used 16 pairs of them to maintain the sense of gravity on Cloud City.
Okay, that's interesting.
As well as to draw in Tabana gas for refinement and to draw in atmospheric heat to drive the thermoconverters that powered the floating city. Canon or not? Who wants to go first?
I can go.
All right, go. Canon or not?
I feel like this isn't canon. Just judging by it, feels like I saw this in that game we got with the PS4, Bounty Hunter. I feel like I heard about this in that.
Oh,
and even that company. What was it? Novaldex. Novaldex. I feel like that was like one of the main companies in that game, and that game is not canon because Jango Fett does some really weird stuff in that kind of breaks a lot of the canon. But I feel like it isn't, and if it is, then it would have to be judging from a book that we, haven't read.
Well, I'm trying to be genuinely, pull stuff out that you wouldn't have the answer
Right.
for.
Exactly. Right. So this would have to be from a book, because it couldn't be from a game, a canon one at least, because they've only had a couple stories that are canon. And TV shows, we've seen all those, and movies. So I don't know.
Samuel Hutt?
I'm gonna guess not canon because it feels like something you would read in an old Legends novel. Like a 90s Legends novel where all those Star Wars Legends books were being written. The level of like detail explaining it feels like something a fan, not like I'm not saying like it's fan fiction, but it's the level of detail that a fan would go into because they appreciate that sort of thing. Kind of like someone writing a D&D campaign in a way. They like to throw in little details and stuff just to flesh out the world. And it feels like something a fan, because I eat that up. I think that's super interesting. Like, oh, they used, tractor beams to make it feel like there's gravity. That's cool, But I don't think I don't think it's canon. I feel like it's from an old book.
Well, it's interesting you brought D&D because it's actually not canon. It's a Legends.
Hey.
And it was from a Star Wars RPG Galaxy Guide.
Oh my gosh. I called it.
Yavin and Bespin. It's from Galaxy Guide to Yavin and Bespin. It's a supplement to Star Wars, the role-playing game, written by Janatha Caspian and published by West End Games for the first time in 1989. It was re-edited in a new edition, updated for the second edition rules in 1995. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
You are the source for all of these things.
I was going to say, that feels like something you'd read in a book that gives you the details on all these little components.
Yeah, the guide gives detailed descriptions of the Yavin investment systems and includes guidelines for developing adventures located in those places.
Will Turbis show up on one of these segments?
I don't know. We'll have to see. We know he is canon. All right, Samuel the Hutt, it's your segment. Go for it.
Well, I finally subjected myself to the torture that is Joss Whedon's Justice League. And you guys weren't exaggerating.
We weren't.
It's bad. Especially when I compare it to having seen Zach Snyder's Justice League first. So we're going to go back through and share our thoughts and discuss some of the differences between the two very different movies.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets. You're coming to us. Is as the footsteps of steps.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Nathan and I both watched these. We watched the 2017 Justice League on the way up to the Avs game. And the whole time I'm just like looking over at Nathan, asking him questions. I'm like, wait, wasn't it like this in the other movie?
And a little backstory. When Dad first watched this movie, he fell asleep halfway through.
I don't blame him.
The whole under the Gotham Harbor battle. I fell asleep at the exact same time. And I woke up and Dad looked at me and I'm just like, this is so boring.
Okay.
Yeah. But then on the drive back home, we watched Zack Snyder's Justice League and everything.
Which felt longer?
The first one.
Exactly. How is that possible?
I don't know, man. But so first off, I want to talk about just kind of like the differences in the story between the first Justice League and Zack Snyder's. I mean, I guess it is the same overall plot between the two movies.
Is the same.
Well, I mean, it's the same series of events.
Yeah.
But it is basically two different movies, if you think about it. And, there's just some points that I noticed. The reasoning for bringing back Superman felt very different in the original than it did in... yeah, go ahead, Nate.
I was just going to say, and like you're saying about the reasoning... Even when Bruce is talking about bringing Superman back in the Batcave, talking with, and Diana's all against it, and so is Aquaman, and there's this big fight between the Justice League. It's so different from the Snyder Cut. When that moment of talking about bringing Superman back is such an epic, team moment where they're like, we need this, we need to win this battle, and Superman's that one person who can help us do that. It's such a different type of story.
Yeah. Continuing to talk about Superman, even Superman's motivation to help when he's brought back was different between the two movies. I think in Justice League, it's like, I gotta see what they, why the heck they bring me back. It's like, when somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night and you're like, well, I guess I gotta go see what the heck's going on now. In Zack Snyder's, it's a subtle difference, but he's like, they brought me back for a reason. I need to go see what that is. I guess it's just the tone of it was different. This one was really weird when I noticed it, but Steppenwolf's motivation for finding the mother boxes was so much less compelling and kind of creepy in Justice League. He's all like,
all will love me.
My mother will love me. I have to go find mother. It's so creepy. In Zack Snyder's, he's like, I gotta appease Darkseid, I
gotta win favor of Darkseid,
right?
Again.
Because I betrayed him and he showed me mercy.
It's so weird.
Not mom. He's got mommy issues basically. In Justice, maybe there's some Freudian like
maybe Joss Whedon had mommy issues or something.
And
wouldn't surprise me.
The last one I think I'll point out before I ask y'all some questions, but even the ending was so much less epic.
Different.
It was so flat, it felt like. And the list could go on, but Nate, what was your reaction when watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, for the first time, when you started noticing and seeing those story changes that Snyder made?
I mean, the whole day when the Snyder Cut came out felt like Christmas because it was like fighting for 5 years to get this movie made, which is crazy. We shouldn't have waited that long. But it felt just an overwhelming sense of relief, like this movie that we knew so much about and we had so many clues about wasn't made because they didn't want it to be, and it just felt so off. And so watching it and seeing all these moments that I heard about from the script put into the movie and seeing like the flash scene at the end, we heard about that. I knew it was coming, but I could not get prepared for what we saw. That was just so epic. One of the most epic moments in superhero cinema. It was just so well done. That was it. Yeah.
This question is for both of y'all, but of all the changes made, in Zack Snyder's, not in the original, in Zack Snyder's, of all the changes that were made, what were y'all's favorite?
I'm gonna have to say Cyborg, because Cyborg felt very underutilized. After watching it again, he felt very different in Justice League, and I loved seeing his character in Snyder Cut.
Dad?
I would go Flash.
I was going to leave that for you, because I knew you liked
the ending with Flash was fantastic, which is what makes Ezra Miller and his completely meltdown so disappointing.
We'll talk about all that in the next segment. Dad, you're not quite as big of a DC fan as me.
Not nearly as big.
I don't think really anybody can. But what was your reaction watching the original Justice League? And at what point did you realize that Zack Snyder's Justice League was going to be so much better?
Well, BB Nate mentioned I fell asleep in the battle sequences.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Justice League. Your Justice League, I guess that's what we'll call it.
Justice League.
I remember finishing that movie and going, it was all right. It was okay.
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't terrible. I mean, it felt like a DC movie.
Yeah.
Okay, there were better DC movies.
There were, but it felt like it was okay, whatever. With it, maybe it shouldn't get all the hate that it got. Then watching the Zack Snyder's Justice League, we got about 30 minutes into it, and all the opening, the backstory, the stuff like that, and I understood the mother boxes for the first time.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
what they are.
I mean, you're right. The Steppenwolf stuff with Mother.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It was like, is that why they're called mother boxes?
Yeah.
And I was just confused.
It was like we didn't know what mother boxes meant.
Right. And so then I get to this, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it feels more, what's the word I'm looking for? It feels more...
fleshed out?
No. Like more desperate in Zack Snyder's Justice.
There's a lot more stakes. I felt
the stakes are higher.
The stakes are much higher in Zack Snyder's Justice.
That's what it felt like. And so I was like, this is definitely going to be a different
because there's that whole dark side and you saw the flashback or whatever. Yeah.
You know that Steppenwolf was going to do anything in his power to do this instead of just being like, I guess I got to conquer another world.
I got to make mommy okay.
I gotta make mommy happy.
Why do you think Joss Whedon made so many changes to Zack's vision?
Okay, we could get into this for hours, but
short and sweet of it.
I don't know why. I don't know if he was trying to sabotage it because he's a Marvel boy.
That's a good point.
Or if he just didn't know what he was dealing with DC or what. I'm not going to say it's because the studio rushed him because of all the stuff he did on the set and behind the scenes. That's not the studio. That's him. And so I'm not sure why he did it, but the main part in my mind is sabotage because he also sabotaged Batman v Superman a few years before and leaked the original script, Christopher Nolan's script, to
For
Marvel.
Batman v Superman?
Yeah, he had the original script was Christopher Nolan.
Really?
And he was a producer on it. And Joss Whedon leaked it to Marvel. And funny enough, right after he leaked it, Civil War was announced.
Really?
And so Christopher Nolan said he couldn't do that again because he was working on other stuff at the time. So he backed out and they weren't able to use that script. And Zack Snyder was livid. I mean, rightfully so. So that seems like the most plausible explanation for
I mean, I would just go, if you want to go with like a very light side, non-Joss Whedon hater.
I'm trying not to be.
I know you're trying. I know you're trying. But perspective, the studio brought him in to finish something that wasn't his. They had already butchered it to the point where he was trying, like they were telling Zack Snyder to get it cut down to 2 hours, and that's not what was going on. And he just basically mailed it in and fought to get a 2 hour movie in there so he'd get paid to move
literally down to the second.
Yep.
If you
no, that's a good point. Next up, I want to talk about the characters. Y'all both mentioned a change in characters too, but just some of the things that I noticed with watching him. Oh boy, there's a lot. Superman was kind of just there to punch stuff, and the mustache.
Oh, mustache gate.
The mustache
I
was
cannot
awesome.
believe the screenshots were not edited.
Exaggeration. They were exactly what was
so bad. How did they release that?
And that took so much of the budget. I don't know how much it was, but I heard it was like millions of dollars was spent on the mustache, and it was that bad. And somebody did like the whole Luke Skywalker stuff, like the deep fake, and it looked exponentially better.
That was the opening shot.
And what was
Superman's
that opening?
Grotesque face. It was horrible. Oh man! And then Batman was a bumbling idiot. Yes,
like you.
That is. Oh, I hated that. Diana. I mean, I guess she was fine, but I didn't like the whole "you need to be a superhero" like a figure. I like how she was in Zack Snyder's Justice League. When
they totally cut out that scene from the
when
bank,
she's like, she's talking to the girls, and that
is such a good Wonder Woman scene.
Aquaman, I mean, he was about the same.
Aquaman is Aquaman.
It's Aquaman. I'm sorry.
Honest,
Jason Momoa is great. I love him, but Aquaman, it's not a very interesting character.
So we just betrayed how we felt about the Aquaman movie.
Flash was honestly lame in the original. So lame. If I had only seen, you kind of mentioned this, Dad. If I had only seen the original Justice League, I'd be fine replacing Ezra Miller as the Flash. But after seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League, I came to really love this version of the character.
Fantastic.
And Nate, you mentioned this. Cyborg was significantly less important in the original, and much less
have a role.
Like I couldn't empathize for him as much.
No, he kept like blaming his dad. He's like, "You created this monster." He was all emo.
I was kind of confused watching the original Justice League because I was like, I thought Cyborg was like really important for this story. Like he's part of the mother box.
Well, you can understand why Ray Fisher was so frustrated. Because they cut that character down to nothing in the Justice
and he had every right to be, because Joss Whedon wasn't the kindest to him.
No, he was terrible to him.
He was terrible.
Yeah.
So that was all of those changes were significant, were very shocking to me going back. But Nate, how frustrating was it when you first watched Justice League, seeing that portrayal of not Ben Affleck's portrayal, but the way they wrote Batman's character?
I was so disappointed because I was expecting a change from Batman v Superman to Justice League. That's just expected because he does change after Superman's death. That's something we all knew, but not like this. It's like he aged backwards 20 years.
That's a good point.
He turned into a little kid again, and then I mean, this is not Batman, but he's cussing all over the place.
Yeah,
he's the only character that was in the original one, and he didn't do that in Zack Snyder's Justice League, even though it's Zack freaking Snyder, and he cusses in every single movie.
He said one
cuss
bad
word, and that's
when his plane was crashing.
Exactly,
in the middle
and
of
that's pretty normal for Batman.
That's a normal reaction.
But and then at the very end in the epilogue, epilogue against Joker is when he drops one of the few F-bombs in the movie. But I think that it was very frustrating to see Batman in this movie. It was to the point when I was first watching it, I was considering turning it off, which I probably should have. But about like 20 minutes in, I'm seriously sitting here and I'm like, this isn't Batman. This isn't Bruce Wayne. This isn't anything I've seen before. This is not good. Wow.
I mean, say what you will, and I have my opinions about Batman in Batman v Superman. He was cool. He was really like he was the brooding, dark, kick your butt Batman, which was fun. I liked it. I didn't like the fact that he killed, but otherwise I thought he was actually a really great Batman. In this, he felt like an idiot. I mean, Iron Man is a cooler, like superhero, like a superpowerless kind of character, like more suave. I mean, he was weird with the whole interaction with Superman. It's like a little girl talking to their crush or something on the school play yard. Like he's stumbling over his words. I'm like, this makes no sense. He wanted to kill this guy.
Exactly.
Last, movie. But, Dad, how much do you think that the poorly written characters contributed to the failure of the original Justice League?
Well, I think it's more than just poorly written characters. It's a poorly written story. And the poorly written characters come as a result of a poorly written story. The reality is, it felt like Joss Whedon was trying to make a Marvel movie using DC characters, and it didn't work. It doesn't match up with the characters. It doesn't match up with the story. It was taking a DC story and trying to make it a Marvel story, and it never worked with it. And maybe that's Joss's fault. Maybe that's Warner Brothers' fault. I personally, I would say what you want about Joss Whedon and the way he handled himself. And we have, most fans are familiar with the controversy over that. I think that's a separate story. I think the people to blame at this are the Warner Brothers executives.
Yeah, the people who didn't know that
did not let Zack Snyder make the movie Zack Snyder wanted to make. And they wanted to make a Marvel movie using Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman. And it didn't work. And they kept their clueless. It's the same people that were trying to figure out why Superman couldn't go back to Krypton.
Right.
At the end of Man of Steel, yeah.
Oh man,
you don't have those people making decisions regarding DC movies,
and you don't have them making them anymore. They're gone, which is so nice.
Right. Hopefully, something new will come.
Yes.
Nate, you seem to really, speaking of Superman, you seem to really like Superman's story in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
I love the story of Superman throughout all of the Zack Snyder movies.
Explain
I think
why.
It's great, but I think
specifically in this movie.
I think it's this story of, you don't really see the emotional side of superheroes dealing with their consequences. I mean, you see it in Civil War, probably because that was just the feeling, the same vibe. But I think we see it because he's constantly considering, should I help this? Like, it's in the scene from Man of Steel when he goes to the church and is talking with the priest, and he's like, I'm the guy that they're looking for.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, but what should I do? And the priest is like, sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith. And that right there, that scene is one of my favorites out of Man of Steel. And it's that decision he makes of, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to commit to just being the savior of this world for now, helping them from these attackers. And then we see it in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and as a compare and contrast from Justice League, in Justice League, he gets to the farm, the whole "you smell good"
that line was in both, and it was still it's in both versions, but it's still so weird.
It's not, actually.
I thought it was.
No, it was dubbed over in Justice League as "you smell good."
Oh,
but in Zack Snyder's Justice League, she says after Clark's like, "You brought me here." He's like, "This is the farm." He's like, "I liked it here," and she's like, "You spoke." And he's like, did I not before? And that line, that little change,
that's so much better. Yeah, you smell good. I like literally, I was watching it. I looked over at Nathan. I'm like, did she just say that?
And so going back, and when he's at the farm and he's remembering who he was and everything. Yeah. And then he gets to that point in Justice League. Lois is like, Bruce needs you. He brought you back to help him. And he's like, oh, well, I guess I gotta go. And even when he gets to the thing, he's like, well, I know you didn't bring me back because you liked me. And then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's like, his mom comes up and he's like, Mom, I have to go. They didn't bring me back for no reason. They need help. And he's like, I have to go figure out what that help
adds
is
weight.
for. And really then that scene when he's walking through the ship in the Snyder cut and getting that suit and the
cool black
Jor-El
one,
and Jonathan are talking to him through his memories, and they're like, it's just it's everything about it is just so epic.
One last little point I want to talk about, and I don't think a lot of people would think that this is a very important thing or would make much of a difference, but the soundtrack. You know, the original starts off with a super whimsical like soundtrack, and I look over at Nathan. I'm like, "What are we watching? Is this like Nightmare Before Christmas? Like, what's happening?" And then in Zach Snyder's, it's a lot more. It feels like a general superhero kind of soundtrack, and I think that hurt the movie too. A lot of the scenes, even if they were the same scene, there were few, but they were there. Even the music made it feel weird. It just felt off.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of goes back to like Star Wars and how originally it was going to have a disco soundtrack.
Or at least that's what some people have suggested.
Could you imagine how much less impact Star Wars would have if John Williams didn't write the score? But Nate, explain why you were so nervous because of the original Justice League for the soundtrack for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Well, it was because Danny Elfman did both, and Danny Elfman's last movie before Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was Justice League. And Danny Elfman had a great run, but I felt like he started to get less and less. And even going back to Age of Ultron, Age of Ultron isn't that great. And Danny Elfman did that one too. And so it felt like he's kind of getting past his prime. And so I was really worried for Multiverse of Madness because I love Michael Giacchino's soundtrack for the first Doctor Strange. I feel like that's what made that movie. As well. And so that was why I was so nervous. And while the Multiverse of Madness soundtrack isn't bad, it is not nearly as bad as Justice League. I don't think anything could get to that point. It's still not as good as Michael Giacchino's. And I do feel like Danny Elfman should put up his hat and just start moving on, because while John Williams is 90 years old, he can still write music that's fantastic because he's just an absolute.
The Obi Wan Kenobi theme is an example,
right?
Yes,
he's still got a game,
but I just don't think that Danny Elfman can keep up. Either he can't. He tries. He tries too hard to stay modern, but still use older things, and he keeps like trying to mesh them. They don't work.
The whole Superman and Batman theme. I was honestly I was excited for that because I like those themes so much, but it did feel off in the original. It felt weird.
He can't keep up with it, and either you go back to the old school roots of who you were, the Batman, Spider-Man, Nightmare Before Christmas, all of those. You stay with that. Or you catch up to what music is now, what soundtracks are now, like Ludwig Göransson.
Unless you're John Williams and it's just timeless.
Exactly, because he is timeless. And so, that couldn't work.
Well, Nate, I am so sorry that you had to live with the original Justice League for so long. But I'd say it was worth the wait.
Oh, for sure.
And now I really want Warner Brothers to # restore the Snyderverse too. So listeners, if you've only seen the 2017 Justice League, please, I'm begging you, do yourself a favor and watch Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Really good. Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we got some movie moments.
We do,
don't we?
We do.
If this was 5 years ago, a movie being released this weekend would be a must-see for us. So I'm just curious to see where we land on it now. That's next on Movie Moments.
At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will have revenge.
New releases, 2 of them. One of them is a little bit bigger than the other. Minions: The Rise of Gru. It is the untold story of one 12-year-old's dream to become the world's greatest supervillain. The director is Kyle Balda. The cast is Steve Carell, Michael Scott, Tarji B. Henson, and Michelle Yeoh. Studios Universal is rated PG for some action, violence, and rude humor. Going yes or no if we could find the time.
We're busy for the next couple of weeks.
I'd say yes.
Is this a movie you guys want to see? This is the one I'm curious about.
I want. Oh, the Minion ones?
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of want to see it. I mean, we've been growing up with Despicable Me for a long time, and I loved. They have gone all out with the marketing for this movie. I'll tell you that. You find Minions everywhere, but they even did like a parody of the Office intro with the Minions and Gru, and it's actually really good.
Yeah, so,
I
want.
Which makes sense because it's Steve Carell.
Exactly. Right. I would see this. Just because, like Sam said, we grew up with the Despicable Me. I grew up with Minions and all that stuff, and and it looks like a fun movie.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we're gonna be like the oldest ones in there without.
No,
like
I'm
a
sure there'll be a
small
lot of our age. But
true.
this next one, didn't hear about it until last week. Mr. Malcolm's List. It's about when she fails to meet an item on his list of requirements for a bride. Julia Thistlethwaite is just jilted by London's most eligible bachelor, Mr. Malcolm.
What's
I feel like I have to go to a
jilted
British
mean?
accent. Feeling humiliated and determined to exact revenge, she convinces her friends.
You're like
Selena
Leia
Dalton
talking to Tarkin in episode 4.
to play the role of his ideal match. Soon, Mr. Malcolm wonders whether he's found the perfect woman or the perfect hoax. The director is Emma Holly Jones. You really gave me a hard time.
I just did this just for these 3 names. Go for it.
Frida Pinto.
That was easy.
Soap DeRusso. I think that works. Soppy. I don't know. Oliver Jackson Cohen. Studio is Warner Brothers.
Oh, it's a WB movie.
Oh yeah, that means they'll be great. PG is there PG for some smoking and mild language. No, I don't think we're
not.
No.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're good. But you got to go to Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris at some point, which is
not me. Sam does.
Nope. No, you got to go with Mom.
Oh, that's
she
right.
wants
Mom
to watch
did
it.
say she wanted to go see that.
Trailers: Thor: Love and Thunder, the team trailer. It's kind of just the little TV spot that they released before the movie comes out, which comes out in 2 weeks. Yeah,
let's go.
Which is exciting. I'm excited about it. And Lego Star Wars Summer Vacation looks like a lot of fun. We heard this get announced at Star Wars Celebration, and and I've been pumped about it because we got the Spooky Adventures and the Holiday Special.
Those are both pretty good,
and they're both really good. This looks like a lot of fun. But for box office results this weekend, kind of went 1, 2, 3 at this. Elvis 38 million domestic, Jurassic World Dominion 31 million domestic, and Top Gun Maverick is still going strong with 30 million domestic in its 5th weekend.
You notice what movie's not up there?
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Lightyear.
That's. I wonder what implication that's going to have for Pixar in the future, because that's their first big flop, isn't it?
Oh, it's I think it's going to kind of show them to just not deal with with that franchise. They need to forget Toy Story. It fell off with 4. And there was no reason to do Lightyear. I would have been fine not have them made Lightyear, but it's back to me.
Is it back to you? You're going to keep going?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Miss Marvel finally has some bad guys, but will they be known enough to be good for the show or just fall flat? So let's talk about who the ClanDestines really are.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Nathan, are you capitalizing the clan, let's C in clan and D in Destines on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's how it goes. Apparently, I don't know.
So
I don't know much about these characters.
Clan
because
Destines.
Yes, actually, that's it. But nobody really knows much about these characters. But Miss Marvel will introduce its antagonists finally, and they're absolutely new
halfway
to
through
us.
the episode of the show.
Yeah. Seems like they will be new to everyone, even people that know who they are. The ClanDestines are basically the anti-Eternals in a certain way. Not really. I just kind of trying to relate. I'm trying to relate them to something that we know.
Okay.
They're super old and all have certain power sets, except this group's actually they're all a family. So
it's like the Incredibles.
Judging from this show and what we've seen, what are y'all's thoughts on this group? The Jinn, or what they are now, the ClanDestines.
I mean, I guess they're fine. I mean, they don't seem to have any powers at this point. They just have magical weapons. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. They have powers in the comics.
They have powers in their Earth, from what I understand.
Oh, that's true.
Yes, but in this one, they have supernatural items,
like belts.
Yes,
that
like
turn
the
into
Agamotto and whatever that pot was that we saw in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that they're fine. I don't see much of a threat really, except to Kamala herself. But other than
Kamala's
that,
family.
Yeah, but like I don't see a larger threat. I mean, maybe you don't need a larger threat. Spider-Man was, he's just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But usually his threats involve at least like a city, or something. I'm not complaining, but I just want to know, why are these guys such a threat? Why do they have to be stopped?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed that in the episode, and they
I feel like
did
that was
explain.
lost in Bruno's exposition little spiel that he had.
It could be
where they had Kamala's dad.
Yeah, I feel like it might have been lost there.
That's true.
But
do you understand kind of what their goal is, or why they're a threat?
All they're wanting to do is to get home, and I researched them, and I don't really know what they're. Yeah, I mean, we kind of want them home, don't we? They're kind of a menace to society. So
as long as them getting home doesn't hurt us.
But apparently it's dangerous.
But they were there because they were
home.
exiled.
Exactly, but it's apparently dangerous to send them home. That's what it was mentioned.
That's right.
But we don't know how dangerous. We don't know if it's just dangerous to Kamala, or if it's dangerous to the whole world, or what it is. I felt like
I think that they were trying to tell this with the Jinn stuff and trying to associate the clandestines with the Jinn, and how terrifying the Jinn are to Kamala and her culture.
Yeah, exactly.
They're essentially like ghost demons. Stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they were trying to help us grab that. I just think it fell flat.
I think it fell flat. Which some of this show has been doing that with its writing. Not that
maybe
it's bad.
If they
it feels like we need more.
Maybe if they had at some point earlier in the series had someone telling Kamala a Jinn story, like a ghost story, and then us finding out later, oh wow, that Jinn story could be real, that would make them a little bit more threatening.
I think the reason they probably didn't do that though is because it would tip their hand as to what was coming. They were trying to make this the big reveal.
That's a good
and
point.
If you see the Jinn earlier in big scary stories about the Jinn, then you kind of know the Jinn are coming.
Yeah.
With this, and I think they were trying to keep that as a secret. I just don't know if it worked.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah. But moving on, the group started with Adam of Destine. There's ClanDestines. When he was saved by a Jinn, and eventually they started a family of superpowered beings. Of course, they all became villains, so that's not good. Sam, we don't have much on this group at all, since they haven't shown up much in the comics. They only had about like a 14-issue run, and then
were they introduced in the Ms. Marvel comic?
No, I think they're introduced in.
They're separate from.
They were separate.
Really interesting.
They were introduced, and they only had a small run, and then they've shown up in a little bit of X-Men, a little bit of Fantastic,
which is another feel like the Eternals.
Exactly. They have not had much of a run with who they are. So do you think it was a good idea to use this group for the show? Do you think it could allow them to expand who these people are and give them freedom for an already established group, but do what they want? Or do you think that it's just not a good idea to use an unknown group?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to make a judgment call right now because they were just introduced and explained. We haven't gotten much from them yet. I think it's risky because the last time they took a fairly unknown group and tried to introduce it into the MCU, it didn't exactly go so well. That was, i.e., Eternals. And some people did like it. We thought it fell flat, but I remember being nice. But I think they still have time to make this group interesting and flesh them out and make them compelling. But at the moment, they just seem like a group of thugs who have magical belts.
Yeah. If they don't develop these characters into having a bigger role in the future of the MCU, then this was a mistake.
Yeah. I feel like it could be. I feel like there will be a one and done villain group in this series.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, I'm afraid of that too. One similarity that we have is the fact that the young members of the family develop powers at some point and decide to do good instead of being evil and trying to convince the rest of the family to do the same. Dad, do you think Kamran and Kamala will do this in this show? Because in the comics, the two young members of the family do develop powers eventually, like Kamran's doing, and they do good and convince the rest of the family, hey, maybe we should be good, and they start to do more good things. Do you think that that'll happen in this show?
No, I don't think that they turn them good. I think that they have to stay the villains in this, and I think that we have to figure out how they fit into the bigger story. Maybe they fit into the Marvels, or something with it. Maybe I'm still trying to figure out where the direction of this phase of the MCU goes in the first place. So I'm hoping that they tie into it a little bit more, but that's kind of...
Kevin Feige said we should be getting the announcement for what the saga is going to be in the next couple months. So even though I thought it was a multiverse saga, but I guess it's just going to be a big part of the saga going forward. Oh gosh, please no. I don't think
that would be as exciting.
I don't think that'd be as exciting.
You ain't never had a friend, ever had.
Oh, yeah, it's not the genie.
It's genie.
But to wrap this up, give me y'all's thoughts on the show so far since we've hit the halfway mark.
Honestly, I don't know if this kind of helps sum it up. When you mentioned that we're at the halfway mark, I'm like, oh, we're already halfway through. I think we've said this about previous series before, where we're like, oh, we're already halfway through and like nothing's happened. So I can't, be too judgmental in that regard. But it does feel like they need to. We got the villains. Why are they a threat? And that's what needs to happen next. And I feel like they've kind of answered all of our like concerns in the next episode each week, each concern that we've had. So I'm sure they'll be like, this is why these people need to be stopped in this next episode. I think overall it's fine. It's not as exciting as the other series, but it's not bad by any means. It's really interesting. The character and her family is a really interesting dynamic, and them showing like a different culture and stuff is honestly super fascinating to see. So I'm enjoying that. I think as a superhero story, it's got some room to improve, but they could very well do it. We're only halfway through.
The family stuff and the culture stuff is the best stuff about this show.
Yeah, I agree.
Without a doubt. I love the relationship in the family. That's I'm compelled by that. The wedding sequences and everything and the family stuff was awesome. I was sort of, when we got to, they're fighting now and these are the bad guys, I was like, okay, who cares? So
I agree.
That's unique for a Marvel show.
That is.
With this. And so I know some people have criticized this show for lots of different reasons, and lots of people love it. It's a very popular show. It's got very high ratings. The family stuff and the culture stuff is the best stuff of this. I'm just hoping that the MCU stuff becomes better going forward.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely been an interesting show so far, and I am interested in what we get in the second half, but make sure to tune in tomorrow for Miss Marvel on Disney Plus.
No Kenobi though.
I know,
which is sad.
Maybe they were just holding back until Kenobi was over.
So yeah, you're right.
It could be happening.
They didn't want to take it. They don't want to take all the thunder.
So, all right. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
We got some Thor: Love and Thunder first reactions. Wacky, surprisingly moving, and probably one of the best Marvel movies yet.
I feel like we get that every time a Marvel movie comes out.
I don't know.
They find the one guy to say that?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
I hope it is.
I really do. I'm a little nervous. I just because this movie seems so different, but so is Ragnarok. So
anyway,
Kevin Feige confirms that Marvel will attend San Diego Comic-Con for the first time in 3 years.
Maybe that's where we get the big
I'm 100% sure that's where we're going to be getting.
That's where
I think that's next month.
It's in July.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that's where we're going to be.
We're going to get media passes.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we're not. Star Wars: Shadow of the Sith is getting praised in the preview copies for its story of Rey's parents. They're saying it's fantastic.
I really want to pick up this book.
That right there made me want the book.
Well, not that excerpt. That
excerpt was good too.
That excerpt made me want to get the book.
Anyway,
that was the one with like Luke fighting the Sith Wraith shadow demon things.
Yeah. And then we're into Anakin.
Anakin started helping him.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Buying the book. All right. Thanks for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We really do appreciate it.
If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah. And of course, the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you liked it and you want to get more, you can like us on Facebook and join our Facebook discussion group and follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action. And you can keep up to date with everything that we've got going on over there at TatooineSons.com.
That's right. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app. Whatever you're listening to us on right now is probably the best one to choose. Yeah. So you don't miss our next episode, and give us a review on that said podcast app if it allows you to. Podcast. Apple Podcast, Spotify, or whatever. We appreciate it very much. We would greatly appreciate it.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.